Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of GMAT Success Talks. Imagine starting your GMAT prep on a high note. You set a target score, take a mock test, and score 575. No problem. You know where you stand and identify your strengths and weaknesses. With a solid study plan in place, you make steady progress. But despite these improvements, doubt creeps in. You wonder if your smooth journey is too good to be true. And as you start taking official mocks, your worst fears begin to materialize. You see scores varying so unpredictably that after scoring 705 a few weeks ago, now reaching even 645 becomes a nightmare. After a frustrating period, you take a 2-week break to reassess. When you return with a revised strategy, you ultimately achieve your target score of 695 on the GMAT Focus, placing you in the 98th percentile. This is the roller coaster GMAT journey of our guest today, Dr. Swagata Barua, a dentist from India who pursued an MBA to pivot into healthcare management. We will, of course, dive deeper into Swagata's GMAT journey, study habits, and preparation techniques. But before that, guys, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to support us in bringing you more inspiring stories like Swagata. So thank you so much, Swagata, for joining us today. I'll definitely ask the thing that I wanted to ask you, which is Ki Khabor in this live session. I don't know how to reply to that, unfortunately. That's
Bhal,
really
you say bhal.
bhal. Yeah, correct. I'm great. Well, Swagata, thanks again so much for joining. I guess let's go right ahead where you
Yep.
can tell us a little bit about your professional background and your motivations for the MBA.
Yeah. Okay, so I joined dentistry as an undergrad in 2013. And I mean, I've always wanted to be in the healthcare line as a doctor or a dentist. Either way, I was fine with it. And I joined dentistry in 2013.
Mhm.
And I joined my post graduation in 2019. Now, when I joined my post graduation, that's when everything changed in the sense that when you're undergrad, you're learning the basics, only the very isolated clinical procedures that you're told to do by your professors.
Mhm.
But when it comes to your post graduation, you get a lot more freedom. We didn't just learn the clinical procedures, but we also learned about your practice management, your revenue optimization, patient retention, patient conversion, all these kind of the business or the managerial side of things. So
Yeah.
for that, I think we got a lot of good exposure, and that kind of made me realize that not only the clinical side, but I also enjoy the administrative or the business side of dentistry. So that's when the idea started percolating, kind of, but it kind of solidified actually when I started working after my post
Mhm.
graduation in 2022 when I finished. And my HOD in the college where I was working, he was a brilliant mentor, and he kind of saw that I had a knack for this side of the profession. So he
Mhm.
told me that why don't you go for an MBA? I think you'll do well in it. So
Yeah.
try to get into healthcare consulting and management. So that's how it happened.
And that is where I guess you, of course, went through the whole MBA application process and you're like, now I have to study for the GMAT. So,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
exactly did your GMAT prep start? I guess you started watching the GMAT Ninja videos and you took some diagnostic.
Yeah, I would say the journey started first on GMAT Club, actually.
Oh,
You know,
nice. Awesome.
yeah. So I started there because it was so new for me. Like in our profession, doctors, you spend 10, 15 years in one specialty or,
Yeah.
in one community of doctors. So we don't get, our world is a little isolated that way. We don't get
Mhm.
to know too much what's happening outside in, other
Mhm.
fields so much. So I had no one in my circle who had done an MBA or knew someone who had done an MBA except from one of my cousins. He's an MBA from Wharton. So I got a little bit of feedback from him, and I kind of consulted him because he's working in the US right now. So, and
Mhm.
my thing was I wanted to have a change of place as well. So I didn't want to do an MBA in India necessarily. I wanted to go abroad, most
Mhm.
likely US. So I
Mhm.
talked to him and got some feedback. He told me, okay, तैयारी करो, to start for the GMAT. But nowadays I saw that even GRE is allowed for MBA. But
Mhm.
I looked at the course, and certain factors kind of made me think that maybe GMAT would be a better idea for me. So I
Yeah.
found GMAT Club like that. So when I found GMAT Club, it was such a helpful resource for me to just get oriented with what is the GMAT, what is an MBA, how to get into it, what's the application process. So that's how I came on GMAT Club, and that's where I got to know about GMAT Ninja. So I
Mm.
started watching the GMAT Ninja videos because, see, I have been out of the mathematics world for the last 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
Last time I studied was back in class 12, right?
Yeah.
12th standard. So I had to get back into it. I needed at least some orientation to understand that, like, is this at my level? Can I even, excel at this? Otherwise, there's no point spending so much money and resource and time on preparation, right? So I started watching the videos and I kind of realized, oh, okay, this course itself is not very tough, but
Exactly.
maybe the way the questions are framed and the time strategy and all that would be the tricky part, and the adaptive, computer adaptive nature of math. So I realized that the course would not be that much of a challenge for me. I said, okay, I can do this. So I went
Mm.
through the videos, and that's after that I took the diagnostic test to kind of figure out whether I'm even up for it. So that's
Mm.
what.
So you took the diagnostic exam. I think you scored a 575 on this test,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So, any way you took this test? Did you at all
Um,
prepare for it, or you just went right in and that was your score?
I didn't prepare as such. I just watched the GMAT Ninja videos.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of, just on MBA.com, whatever little instructions they gave about the nature of the exam and the section timings and all that, I had no other strategy. I just went in blind. I was like, okay, this is the basic syllabus. Basically, the maths part I had seen because I mean, I was good at maths even in school. I used to always get 9900, but I was out of touch. So that's why I watched the GMAT Ninja videos and one or two of the verbal videos because I felt verbal, I'll try on my own. So that's what I did.
Mm.
And
Makes
DI,
sense.
I was totally blind. So little bit only because even GMAT Ninja had very, limited videos on DI because it was at that time when I took it, it was still again GMAT Classic was there, again Focus was also there. So it was kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Well, awesome. Okay, so I think you've taken a diagnostic test. That was your score. So let's now come to December 2023. You had taken a diagnostic test again, or this was the same one? Was this the same
I
test?
took the diagnostic test in December. Yeah.
December. Okay. And after that, what was your like next 3 months of prep
Yeah.
like? Like what
Yeah.
all did
So
you do? Let us know.
yeah. So once, I started this journey actually in September 2023. Okay, like
Mhm.
just getting oriented with what is the MBA, GMAT, all that. So it took me a month about to get oriented. Then I started looking up the courses. So when I saw the different, like I narrowed it down between Manhattan Prep, eGMAT, and TTP, and then finally I zeroed in on TTP, target
Mm.
test prep, because I felt it was comprehensive for the price that they offered it for. So I was
Mhm.
quite happy with what they offered. So I took the course in, like, I subscribed to the 6 months course in September, but because
Mhm.
of work and I was shifting locations also, from Delhi to Assam.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get, started on my preparations. So they were very kind when I told them that, things like this happened and, I need to start only from December once I shift.
Mhm.
So they changed my subscription date and everything. So they were very kind about that. I must tell you that.
Yeah.
And so in December, that's when the TTP journey also started. Gave my diagnostic test. Then I realized that okay, scores are not great, but they're not too bad. I kind of got some feedback on GMAT Club as well because I posted my
Mhm.
scores, and a lot of the tutors and a lot of people were supportive that I think you can do it with the right strategy. So like, chalo, let's start. So I did the TTP course, and it lasts about 3.5 months, I think, the entire syllabus. So
Yeah.
in those 3 4 months, like till March end, I just followed the TTP study plan absolutely to the T. Like
Mm.
they have the option of mission based and daily study plan. Now I'm someone who needs the daily,
Mm.
schedule structure. So I took the daily study plan, and I'm very glad that I did, because if I was
Mm.
doing the mission based, I would be preparing till today. I would not be able to finish it in time.
Makes sense.
So I did the daily study plan, and then the really good thing about the course was they used to have review tests every 2 3 days, every week, a big quiz, and then they have reviewing your mistakes every, I think, every alternate day. That
Mhm.
really helps, because otherwise you keep forgetting your mistakes and you repeat them. So this
Mm.
reviewing your mistake part of the schedule really helps in saving your time of not
Yeah.
repeating the same stuff.
Yeah. Makes
That's what
sense.
happened till March.
Till March. Okay, so this was like your 3 months. And after preparing for 3 months, what happened next? I think you started taking your official practice
Yeah,
test,
yeah.
correct? Okay, so
So
tell us.
what happens is that on the TTP daily study plan, that after you finish the entire curriculum according to their schedule till DI, then you start giving your official mocks as, and you simultaneously start, solving the official guides. That's what
Mm,
they advise, and I followed the advice because I had no other advice. So I followed that, and I don't believe in taking advice from multiple people. I've seen this with some of the aspirants who were preparing at the same time with me, and I feel,
mm.
too many cooks spoil the broth. Have faith in one technique and go
Yeah.
ahead. This is the first thing I would say, because Indian students especially, we have a tendency of studying, I don't know, 10, 15 hours a day and kind of studying from 10 different sources. I don't think GMAT is an exam like that. You don't
Mm,
need more course material, you need your proper strategy, which is repeatable and applicable. So I think that is the main thing that I found, and I followed. So I followed this technique, and I started giving my mocks after my course finished. And my
mm.
first was 645, and it was a quant of 77, verbal of 90, and a DI of 79.
Not bad.
So verbal, I thought, okay, it was very good, 100
Yeah.
percentile. Nah? But quant, I wanted certainly over 80, and even
Mm,
with DI. So these two say DI was still pretty close, 79. So I thought DI will be okay, but I thought ki quant, I need to practice more maybe, and I
mm,
was I was prepared for that because quant was what I was out of touch with for so long. So I was like, okay. So I started following the TTP plan only till now. Till now,
mhm,
this is March, until April, I followed their technique. Okay,
mhm,
that you keep solving the official guides, and you keep giving our review tests once in a while, and your weak area tests based on their data analysis. And I kept doing that for a month, and then I saw that okay, scores were going up. Now I have my scores, like it was 89 for a while, then it went up to 93rd, and then it stayed at 93rd for a while. So I was like, okay, it's going fine. But then suddenly, again, at my fifth official practice test, it dropped to 89 again. You know,
mm,
actually, no, it peaked at 99th percentile, and then it dropped to 89th. Yeah, it went from 89, 93rd, and then went to 99th. So
mm,
I was very shocked that okay, I have reached 99, it's great, and suddenly it dropped to 89. I couldn't
mm.
understand why that happened. So I started changing my strategy a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think this is where the next part comes in of April to, yeah, May.
Correct, correct, correct. Well, and I think, I mean, someone did ask here as well, of course, Ki, how did you manage to actually get the V88? Like, where did you lose those 2 out of the 90 score? Is it the RC or the CR?
I think it was CR.
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 Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, we can definitely get back to it later as well. I think
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I
no,
think I have to check, I have to verify before I answer that properly.
no problem, no problem. All right.
Yeah,
So now let's come to April, right?
yeah, yeah.
You changed the game plan. You came up with a revised strategy for CR by following BB's time management strategy. So tell us more about that phase.
Yeah. So this is the phase when I saw that scores were going up, but also not as stable as I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I took up BB's time strategy. It's on GMAT Club. I don't have the link right now. If someone can get it, I'm sure we can post it.
Yeah.
The basic strategy was that this was for focus. So it was like after your fifth question, you should have 35 minutes left on your timer. After 10 questions, you should have 25 minutes. And after 15 questions are done, you should have 15 minutes left. So that you have enough time to do your revision also in the end, because GMAT focus allows you to, change your answers as well on 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I followed this strategy because I saw that in my scores, at least in the beginning of my mock test, that 645 that I was getting stuck on was mostly because I was skip. I couldn't finish it on time. The last 2 questions, either in DI or quant, were being left behind. Now verbal, I was able to finish always on time, but quant and DI time management was an issue for me. So once I followed this BB's time strategy, no problem after that with time. So
Yeah.
that issue was solved. Now my next issue was a little bit about verbal. I know people will hear my verbal scores and be like, what's the problem? I got 90, 88, like that. But I felt that, I was getting the questions right on instinct rather than a fixed strategy. And that's
Mm,
what I read on GMAT Club over and over again, that you can't get it on right on a fluke. You have to get it right on a fixed strategy. Yeah.
correct.
So that's when I realized that I'm getting it right, but I don't know how I'm getting it right. Because when people,
Mm,
so I would always imagine that if someone asked me today, how did you get it right? I couldn't say how, but I should know, you know. So that's how I decided that I should, maybe brush up on some foundational skills in verbal. So I started reading your Power Score CR Bible.
yeah, that's a really good one.
I heard on GMAT Club, and I thought, okay, let's go for it. So, I mean, it's a very extensive book. I mean,
Very.
I'm honest, I didn't go each and every page I didn't read, but I tried to get a basic idea. I felt that in CR and subsequently in RC also, that basically if you get the concept of assumption right, you can
Mm,
get the rest of it right. Because basically it's to figure out what is the basis of that argument in any
right.
passage, right? And
Yeah.
assumption is the main part of that. So I focus on the assumption chapter and a little bit on the weakening the argument section of
Hmm.
Power Score. And I realized that, okay, now I'm getting a kind of a better concept of how I'm solving these verbal questions. So that was
Correct.
about verbal. Then in Quant, till now, what I did was I just started taking the review test, custom review test on TTP's platform about
Mm,
my weak areas. That's what I started doing because I had the error log on TTP's module. So that's what I
mm,
did. And I also started looking at the forum explain on the GMAT Club forum. You have so many resources of the different questions because I had
mm,
started solving the OG guides by now, right? So the OG explanation, instead of looking at the explanation in the book itself, in the review itself, I started looking for the explanations in GMAT Club forum. I found them to be much more comprehensive, much more easily understandable, and most importantly, replicable. It's not
mm,
about the individual question or you getting the individual question right. It's more about having a replicable technique for the same type of question. So that's what I
mm.
got on GMAT Club forum.
Makes
So
sense.
this is
Makes
the
sense.
journey till about May. Yeah.
Okay. And regarding your quant prep, how exactly did GMAT Club's sectional
Yeah.
tests help with this section?
So this now starts in May.
Gotcha.
Now, what happened is that Power Score, like I both for quant and verbal, I'll say. Like
Mm-hmm.
for verbal, I'll get it out of the way first. I was happy with what I learned from Power Score, but I still felt there were certain areas maybe I didn't have. I had a technique, but I needed to be more structured about it. So I signed up for eGMAT's free trial. I didn't take the paid pack. I'm being honest about it. I took the free trial pack. They're very kind to provide this free trial pack to people, and I went through their lessons on assumption again because I felt that was the key. So when I did that, there's their concept of pre-thinking and falsification scenarios and negation tests. These three things really help. Now, I will still say that I prefer TTP's method of not pre-thinking every question, because if you start pre-thinking every question, you're wasting a lot of time.
Right.
So I don't agree with the fact that you have to pre-think every question. But when you're preparing untimed in your preparation time, I feel then pre-thinking helps in the sense that it helps you understand how the author reaches a certain conclusion. So
Mm,
while I was practicing, I applied the concept of pre-thinking that, oh, what could be the possible scenarios where this conclusion doesn't come true. So
mm,
pre-thinking helped me in that. But while I was giving the mocks, I wouldn't pre-think. That I followed from TTP, that you don't pre-think because the options you get may not be the scenarios you have imagined in your mind and you're wasting time. Right? So it was a mixture of both EGMAT's strategy, concepts and TTP strategy now for
mm,
verbal. And it was solidified my technique. Now when we come to quant, now quant, I was still not getting the kind of sectional score stability that I wanted in quant. So I had done my TTP courses, I had done my TTP review tests, and the question bank was exhausted by then. So I thought where to study. Now the GMAT Club has is a huge question bank, right?
yeah.
So I decided that I would start the custom test on GMAT Club. Now,
Mm,
I used to take the normal sectional tests also, but I found it more useful for my time to do the custom test, where
mm,
I had made a good error log from my TTP questions also, as well as my OG guide on an Excel sheet. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of analyzed which were my top five or top six weakest topics in quant. And I
Mm-hmm.
just started, doing custom tests only in these sections. I stopped everything else. I used to have my, just for general revision, I had my active review sheets from TTP, which are like basically you make your, shortened notes from their lessons. So,
Mm-hmm.
the formulas and the techniques and the steps and all that. So I had those active review sheets for the rest of the syllabus. So I used to just go through that once a week so that I don't remember the concept, I don't forget
Mm-hmm.
the concepts. But for my weak areas, I just started taking those custom tests. That's
Mm-hmm.
it,
Makes
on
sense.
GMAT Club. And they have an extensive question bank, and not just extensive, the difficulty level is higher than the OGs, I feel, and the
Mm-hmm.
actual test. So I thought if I can solve these questions, I can solve the official two questions for sure. And the
Mm-hmm.
main thing was to get over the psychological barrier, because for me, I think quant had become like this thing that, oh, I'm not so familiar with it. And certain topics like permutation and combination or probability, which I was always a little, iffy about. So it became like a psychological barrier that every time I used to see them on the practice test, I would be like, oh, I can't answer this. So,
Mm-hmm.
this one thing in TTP, I think Scott says it or somebody says it in their strategy lessons on their module, where they say that, make your weak areas your strong areas. Now, that was something I didn't understand in the beginning, but by the end of these custom tests on GMAT Club, I realized, yeah, by the time I started giving the mocks in June, like towards the end of June, it was like when probability would come, I would be almost glad because I had done so many questions from.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Towards the end, I feel doing focus study rather than bulk studying is more important, that you focus on your weak area. So this was the journey in June.
Makes sense. And also during that time as well, your I think your overall score was also stuck at 645. Is that right? So,
Um, Yeah, I mean, what had happened is that it had started, like, it was stuck at 645 for a while, then it started going up again, even
mm-hmm.
going up to, say, 96th percentile. But then it
Mm-hmm.
started, I mean, it kept going up and down. Like in the middle, I had even 705, but then again it dropped to 655, then again 675, then again 645. It was kind of fluctuating a bit at this point. So I thought, okay, I've got my concepts down, I've changed my strategies, I've solidified my strategy. I can't do anything more than this. Now,
Correct.
this is when, it was like a message from heaven almost. Like, I think it was GMAT Day or MBA Day, something happened in June, right? In GMAT Club.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right.
GMAT day.
GMAT Day, right. So I watched the panel discussion between the different prep centers. I think eGMAT, TTP, and Manhattan Prep, and somebody else. I think top 1% or somebody was there also, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But what I remember from it was that Mr. Rajat from eGMAT, he mentioned it in between that maybe it is a GMAT focus, might be sectional adaptive. Sectional, not just adaptive within the section, but also between sections.
Oh,
So
okay, okay,
this
okay.
was a very new thing he said, and the rest of the prep centers were not very sure about it because GMAT Focus was still very new at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Analytics had not really released, but Mr. Rajat was very confident that we have done our analysis, and we don't have any verification for it, but this seems to be true that it certainly does change the score pattern if you change the section patterns. So, and he's recommended that you do your sections from your toughest, your easiest or your strongest to your
Mm-hmm.
weakest. So
Uh,
till then, I had been taking all my practice tests as quant, verbal, and DI. But
mm.
my strongest section had always been verbal. So I changed the section order to verbal, quant, and then DI.
Smart.
Now this was a game changer for me. After this, it was not just that the scores became consistent, but also I saw that the level of questions in quant and DI were more manageable for me. Before
Mm.
that, I felt that the quant section, I mean, I was doing okay, but it felt like a challenge to me a bit more than I was comfortable with. But after
Mm-hmm.
I changed the orders, it was much easier in the sense it was much more manageable for me. The questions were of a level which were not so intimidating for me. And I was
Mm.
scoring quite okay even after the change. So I think the section change really helped me feel confident that, my
Mm.
scores are stable now and I can take the exam. So
So you
that's
kind
what
of
really,
moved
yes.
Rajat's sort
Yeah,
of
definitely.
interesting. Or it also could be more of like a psychological thing. So like when you know that you're doing quite well in one section, that I think because stress levels also, impact your
Yeah,
exam, right? Like if you stress even a
definitely.
little bit, it will
Yeah.
definitely ruin the
Yeah,
thing for you. So
because you know
why
what
not?
happened, like between like usually verbal, almost always I would finish about 10-15 minutes before the time.
Mhm,
So what happened for me, that because I took the verbal in the beginning, I had
mhm.
a kind of a unofficial break in between first section and second section, and I
Understood.
took my optional break between quant and DI, so it was definitely more relaxed. Yes.
Relaxing. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so before we come to the D Day, I want to again touch upon verbal. So you were strong in verbal from the very beginning, which is somewhat uncommon in non native students. So, what do
Yeah.
you think made you strong in this area?
Okay, now this non-native thing is a very tricky terminology for me, because I feel in India, are we really non-native
That's
speakers
also
when it
true.
comes to English? Because we've studied that more than our own languages in school. All our lessons, all our courses were in English, right?
Yeah,
Our actual own language was just one subject. Rest of the subjects were in English. And on
correct.
top of that, I studied in a convent school, so English is strong
Mm,
there anyway. We have to
mm,
interact with our friends also in English. Then, most importantly, of course, my background family is an English literature background family. My dad was a professor of English literature.
nice,
Mom was a journalist in Press Trust of India. So,
nice.
and my granddad was also a literature. So, I mean, I have a strong background in language or
Yeah.
English specifically for a long time.
Makes sense, makes sense. Well, no, you do have a point there. All right, so let's discuss now the actual D-Day. Walk us through the exam day, a day before the exam, and reaching a test center, the whole administrative process, how you started the exam, and you can discuss maybe the section order and how your feelings were in each section by taking the breaks, and of
Yeah.
course, in the end, reaction after seeing the score, 695.
I'll try to cover everything. If I miss anything, please remind me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the day before the exam, like I would say, the prep for the exam starts about a week before it. Like in the
Hmm.
sense that people think it's only about the exam, but no, it's like a holistic approach you have to take. It's not just about the course material; it's about your lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
So I know I love food and I love eating out, but I had stopped that completely 1 week before the exam, so that I
Mhm.
had a very stable diet, a very simple diet of soup and salads and bread, and
Mm,
very simple, no masala, no nothing. Keeping it very, because you're nervous, something which you can normally kind of get through, you can't get through a week before the exam. So very simple stuff. And then sleep, I never compromised on my sleep. 6 to 7 hours at night, sleeping early, getting up early, my same routine.
mhm.
Working out in the morning, nothing too strenuous so that I don't exert myself or injure myself, but mostly I would do yoga, which I always
Mhm.
do for my normal flexibility and mobility. That I
Yeah.
continue till the day of the exam itself, even that day morning, because I used to notice that I know I did all these variable studies, as a post. I mean, I've done research for my thesis in my postgrad, so I have a research kind of mindset. So I did these variable factors during my mock test. One day I would exercise in the morning and then give the practice test. One day I would not exercise and give. One day I would meditate and give. So I did all these variables, and I realized that doing a little bit of light exercise in the morning helps you focus, keeps you centered, little bit of meditation. So this is what I followed even on the day of the exam, followed my normal routine. Then I was lucky that my exam center itself was very small center, because I'm from Assam, and we don't have too many GMAT candidates there. So I was the only person in the center in my slot. I
Oh,
was very
crazy,
happy about that. And
crazy.
yeah, amazing. And the people
Maybe
in
I
the
should. Maybe we should do the exam in Assam. Whoever wants to take their exam like that, go to Assam first.
yeah, it was so, it was so cozy and comforting that nobody else was there. The
Yeah.
people from the center were also, Pearson Center were also very, friendly. And I had seen horror stories on GMAT Club that, oh, something this there happens. but they were very nice, very cooperative. In fact, I reached the center very early. My slot was from 10, but I was done with everything, my biometric and everything, because I was the only person. So it was done in 5 minutes. So by 9:30 we were ready, and I was just waiting and sitting. We were looking. The proctor was looking at me, and I was looking at him. He was like, "Do you want to start your exam?" I was like, "I can start like this before the time." He said, "Yeah, if I log in at the time, it's fine. You can start." I was like, "Let's finish it up," because the
Mm,
anticipation really builds up your anxiety. So I was like, "Let's start it." So I started the exam at 9:30 instead of 10. Now the thing was, because even when I used to give the mock test, it was usually in my clinic. When
mm,
I used to not schedule patients at the time, so I would have my isolated phase
correct.
and just my desk and my clinic. So it was very similar to that, because there was no one, just my table and my
Correct.
computer. And I started giving. And one thing at this time was, just the day before the exam, I watched the GMAT debrief on your YouTube channel. And
Mm,
one of the, now I can't remember the girl. She was an Indian girl only,
yeah.
and she said, I think she got 99 percentile or 100 percentile, something like that. And she said that, what I did, I didn't take the optional breaks,
Mm,
because it messes up with your momentum. I said, okay,
mm,
that's not a bad idea. So I thought I'll apply the same thing. So I also I tried not to take my optional breaks, or I didn't try to take at least the whole 10 minutes. Like, I needed to use the
mm,
washroom or something, so I just took those 2 minutes, came back. Luckily, in my center, the washroom is inside the center. So it was
mm,
literally like in my own clinic or my own home, where you
mm,
quickly run to the washroom and come back, and you're just back there. And they gave me my earplugs and everything, even though I didn't need it, but just for a psychological thing that, okay, I'm totally isolated, nothing can
correct.
disturb me. I used the earplugs, and I started with verbal as usual.
Mm,
And verbal was, I would say, a little harder than my official practice test. But I was
mhm,
prepared for it, because the GMAT Club test and the TTP tests were already, they had different difficulty levels. So I was ready for it. I was a little, I wouldn't say surprised, but I was like, I just noticed that, okay, they're a little tougher than the normal practice test, but okay, we'll get through it. I was confident with my verbal, and I had, as usual, about 10-15 minutes left after answering all the questions, revising everything.
mm,
And then I started Quant. Now, this obviously I was a little apprehensive about, because I didn't know how difficult it was going to be. And very funnily, the questions that were coming now, I don't know whether it's perceived because I was relaxed or whatever. I felt the questions were very easy. So
mm,
I always thought that, oh, am I messing up my answers royally? Why are such easy level questions coming? I must have messed it up completely in the first few
correct.
questions.
Yeah.
I was a little worried, but I was like, I don't think I'm getting it wrong. And I, again, usually in quant, I would not have about 10 minutes left. I would have about maybe five. I had 10 minutes left. I was like, I've definitely gone wrong somewhere. I started going through all the questions
Oh
once,
God.
and I realized that, oh, they seem okay. The ones
Yeah.
I know are okay, and the ones which are doubtful will remain doubtful. I was like, no,
Correct.
what to do? I was like, okay, anyway, let's get through it. Whatever has happened. Now let's get forward. Now DI started. Now DI, I would say, it was not overtly easy or tough. It was how the official practice tests are. It's
Mm,
DI in general. I felt was never techniques, sensitive or technique. It was not very difficult technically. It was always about that you get a lot of information and processing that and getting the answer in 2 minutes. That is the challenge in DI always. There is no conceptual error. I know. Challenge in DI, I feel, because I've, as a as a postgrad also, I had done a lot of data analysis and statistical analysis for my studies and thesis. So that was never a challenge for me, reading the graphs and tables and all that, but it was always about getting it in that time of 2 minutes.
mm,
So, but I felt that the kind of questions they gave were good enough that you can finish in time. So, DI also, I felt it was okay. Only
mm,
thing difference I noticed from the practice test and even from what I've seen on GMAT Club or TTP was that I started getting CR and verbal questions for the data sufficiency question. Now
mm,
that I had never seen in the practice test. It was
mm,
always quant based, the data sufficiency questions,
yeah.
but here they were verbal based also. So
Mm,
that was a little confusing suddenly to get a very different kind of type of DS question. But I adapted along with it. They were not so tough. They were, and I guess because my verbal was already okay, so I was not too shocked by it or too worried about it. So that was how it ended. When I saw the score, of course, I mean,
You're
my
like,
aim
"Ooh."
basically, my aim was basically to get over 90th percentile with my profile and background. I thought, okay, 90th percentile, if I cross, I'll be happy with myself. And
Correct.
ideally, over 93, 95 percentile. When I saw 98, I looked twice. I said 98. I didn't even look at my sectional scores. I was like 98. Okay, fine. I came out of the score center and I just told my mom, Mom, 98%. She was like, okay, great.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Someone did here ask though, how did you manage the time in data insights?
Time, I would say that I again followed the same BB strategy of 35, 25, and 15. Same.
Mhm.
But the thing with DI was that I would like these MSR questions. Sometimes the information is you get lost in the details. So I would try not to get lost in the details. I would try to just quickly go through the question that what are they asking for and try to find that passage. I used to
Mhm.
always take 10 seconds to go through all the tabs in MSR so that I have an idea about what they're basically trying to say, but then not waste too much time in each tab. Go to the question, see what they're looking for, and then try to answer them. When it comes to table two-part analysis, now that gets tricky because you have to kind of figure out it's like a jigsaw puzzle that if you get this answer in the first part only, then the second part fits. So honestly, I would say if you can understand or like if you have a clear path in your mind within a minute that this
Mhm.
is how I'll get the answer, then go ahead and try to figure it out. But with after 1 minute 30 seconds also on that question, if you can't figure out how to get the answer, then don't waste your time on it. Yes, and
Mhm.
move on, because I think DI is a section particularly which is very forgiving about incorrect answers. Like
Mhm.
on DI, on Quant, I think you get one question wrong, score a person that really goes down. But
Yeah.
DI is much more forgiving. So I think you should not get stuck on DI too much. Whatever
Yeah.
seems like a very straightforward answer, a clear answer in your mind within a minute, get to it, move forward. But if you don't get the path in your mind, then you're not going to get it on paper. So don't
Mhm.
waste your time. Move forward,
Understood.
yes, and move forward. And you have time in the end. You can go through it again.
Makes sense. We have another question here. Someone's asking, how helpful was the official guide for the exam?
That is something I have to really think about, in the sense that official guides, yeah, I think they were helpful in the sense that it's like a huge question bank of all types of questions, right? And it's the closest to the actual exam, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
in that sense, I would say that yeah, you get, because sometimes what happens on these prep courses, like they have questions of different levels. Sometimes they're too tough, or the pattern is not exactly what the practice test asks for. So you're not clear what kind of questions exactly come, right?
Mm,
But when it comes to the official, and on GMAT Club also, questions are great, but sometimes they're a little too tough. So you get
true.
intimidated sometimes. But I think
Mhm.
official guides are a good, it's like a good map to understand that, okay, this is actually the type of question they'll come, because I think the GMAT is very fair that their actual questions on the exam are quite similar to the
Yeah.
official
And
guide.
I mean, also GMAT spends thousands of dollars just creating each of these questions every year. So imagine these questions are like gold for you during your
Yeah,
prep.
for sure.
So
For you get the pattern right only in the official guides.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So the official guide, plus of course the actual official practice tests, are something that you should invest your money on, and then the rest
Absolutely.
is up to you where you wanna you're gonna go for TTP,
One
GMAT.
more, one more advice for the official guides, I would say that I think I've talked to a few aspirants who have been preparing with me, and the one common mistake is that you do solve the official guides without timing it. It has to be
Mm,
timed, because you're doing it towards the end of your preparation. There is no time for untimed solving right now. So,
mhm,
and I would personally always do it in sets of the actual question pattern, in the sense that I would do 21 in quant, 23 in verbal, and 20 in DI. So my mind gets used to solving that number of questions from quant, verbal, or DI, whatever, in that amount of time. So I
mm.
would say that is one advice I would give.
Understood. All right. Someone here asked, what was your accuracy in practice tests? Was it easy, medium, or hard?
On these practice tests on TTP, are they asking?
Depends. Maybe in general, all of the practice tests that you took.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, I haven't done the exact calculation, but on TTP, what it would show, because they have an automatic calculator.
Yeah.
So on easy, I would always get 99 or 98% across
Mm,
the board. Also, I mean, in quant and verbal, in DI, I think I would get about 90% because DI
mm.
you have those multiple things, so
Yeah,
accuracy is a
yeah.
little difficult. So I think it was about 90% in the easy section, and in medium, I would always get in quant not less than 90%.
Mm-hmm.
In verbal, I would get about 85%, actually, honestly, 85-90%. DI would go down to about 70% in the medium questions. In hard, in the quant section, between 80 to 85%, maybe. Or sometimes on, my tougher sections like probability or something, maybe it would go down to 75, but not lower than that.
Yeah.
And in verbal, again, it would come down to about 70%. And in DI, it had come down to 60%.
Understood. I also was wondering what did they mean by this question? So I realized Target Test Prep has a separate, I think, test thing, right, for easy, medium, and hard. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah,
this test has easy, medium, and hard. So I was confused for a second, but
yeah.
gotcha.
So,
All right,
yeah.
all right, all right, all right. All right. And someone here asked as well, what would you suggest to newcomers like me who are from an arts background? I'm 20 and just graduated. Any thoughts?
Okay, so I would say, yeah, same. Like, depends how, like, what was your foundation of, arithmetic and algebra in school? It's
Hmm.
fine if you've not been in touch with it for a while. Like I wasn't in touch for a long while. But
Mhm.
I must give credit to my school teacher, school maths teacher. I mean, he was amazing, phenomenal man. And he made my foundation so strong that I may have forgotten the exact formulas and stuff over the 10 years, over a decade. But as soon as I got back into the course, it came back to me in a jiffy because the
Mm,
foundation was strong. So I would say it depends on how good, how attentive you were in school. And but I
that's
feel even if you weren't, if you get the right course. Now I would say if you're from an arts background, you probably didn't even have maths in your 12th as well, right? So
yeah,
you've been out of touch for a while and you've done only the basic stuff in school, in
yeah.
high school. So I would advise that don't try to do self study. Take help when you need it. Don't be too stingy or too prideful about it. Go for a course, whatever you feel is more comprehensive and more affordable for you, and take that help. Don't try to do it on your own. I don't think that's going to work,
And
honestly.
before you put all of your money in a course that you might not know of, do go through the review section in GMAT Club. There are a lot of people who review courses there. You'll get an
Yeah,
idea because it does take money to invest in a course as well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
better to invest for a longer duration because it takes time to practice.
yeah.
People think they need maybe a month or two. A lot of the time,
No.
it's
No,
not
at
that.
least 3 to 4 months I feel you need if you're coming in raw. If you're not an
Exactly.
engineer, not a finance person, then you need 3 to 4 months, and do your due diligence before you start your journey. Like I started my journey in December, but I started researching in September, right? So it took 2-3 months, 2.5 months to just
Mhm.
decide what I was gonna do. So I think don't be in a rush. You're only 20, so you're young, probably not that mature. So kind of take your time, take advice if you have someone who is from this background. And I would say also, if I don't know, are you a Ratan? Okay, you probably are from India. So I mean, at 20, I can't even imagine how I would deal with the GMAT. But the main thing is get out of the mindset of the Indian exam system or the education system. It's very, very different. So
That's
don't get stuck in that kind of routine. We've all come from that background where it's a rat race and you have to just mug up, and it's a
true.
very different game. That's tough as well, but it's a different game. This is a different game. So get used to or get acclimatized to the GMAT system of examination.
Exactly. Awesome tip. All right. Another question is from Prajwal. He's saying, any tips for me? I am giving my second attempt in 10 days.
Okay, second attempt. So I'm assuming you have the curriculum down to a T, hopefully by now. Your main issue right now probably will be anxiety and all your inner thoughts and inner demons. kind of telling you that you can't do it or you will not be able to do it, what's happening, it's your second attempt. So I would say for anxiety management, the main thing is to kind of find your own center. Like for me, it was yoga and meditation. For
Right.
someone else, it might be just going for a walk, talking with your friends, talking with your family members, or just watching your favorite series, something like that. Anything which centers you. It is
Mm,
very customized and personal to you, or maybe praying or whatever, whoever, whatever helps you. So I would say get your anxiety under control. And the GMAT is such a good exam. You can give it so many times. I know there are constraints, financial, time, everything, why you can't give it so many times, but you do have the option. It's not the end of the world. And
mm,
always have a plan B in life. So, the same thing I had the problem when I was giving my NEET for my UG and my PG. Now, by PG, I had become a bit more relaxed, but before my UG, all stakes in, do or die. When life actually is not like that, it doesn't end or begin after an exam, it goes on. So, you have to have
mm,
a more philosophical approach to exams, I feel. And, don't mess up your normal schedule. Like I study 3 to 4 hours a day, nothing more than that. And that
mhm,
was also after I finished my dinner and everything. I'm just chilling at home. I've taken that time from 8:30 to say 12:30. That's it. The
mhm.
rest of the day, I'm doing my normal work, hanging out with my friends, going out partying, whatever I have to do. And of course, not 10 days before the exam, but I'm saying generally the last 10 days at least, follow your normal home routine. Don't
Mm,
make it feel bigger than it is because it's not, honestly.
yeah,
Life will go on either way.
that's true. All right. Wait, let me just remove this question. It was completely way up. All right. And now looking back, though, Swagata, is there anything else that you think you would do differently in your preparation?
Hmm. Differently. Uh, Differently, I don't think so. Because I think I like the my biggest challenge before the GMAT always used to be performance pressure in the sense that I've always been a good student, so I've
Mm,
always had that image of being performing well. But then performance anxiety on the last day sometimes would not give me the score I want. So my main challenge was psychological by the end. So that is what I would say that um, I mean, I don't think I would do anything differently because I think I managed it well. But I would say the main takeaway from this thing is that you have to. It's a very GMAT journey to getting your from your prep to your exam. It's a very reflective journey in the sense that you really have to face your flaws, whether it is in your curriculum or it is psychological or physical, whatever it is. Now the
mhm,
problem is you can't run away from it and you can't bury it in the sand. So
mhm,
facing and finding strategies to manage your own shortcomings, that is the biggest challenge. I feel error, analysis and rigorous error analysis, not shying away from admitting that okay, I'm bad at these topics and I really have to get better at it, and taking as much help as you can from there's so many resources nowadays: GMAT Club, prep courses, YouTube, and study groups. So many resources. There's really no excuse now to say that I don't know where to study from. There's so much
mhm,
resource. Sometimes it almost becomes too much. So you just have
mhm.
to figure out your own path and don't compare yourself with anyone else. That is the main thing I would say, that I would sometimes fall into that, maybe comparing, sometimes seeing all these debriefs of 99%, 98%, I
Yeah,
get overwhelming sometimes.
very
But then
overwhelming.
you have to remember your journey is your own, and you are the only one who can walk on it.
And yeah, I think the major thing when you're taking the GMAT is to just make sure your basics are covered. Like you said, Swagata, like every question that you take up should be like, okay, I know how to tackle this, instead of I feel like I might have to guess here. That's when you might get a bad score. So have your basics in check, and things will be perfect to the T. All right, Swagata, I guess that covers most of your debrief. I don't know if we'd like to talk a little bit about maybe what your future plans are, because we do have some questions here. So if you're
Okay.
okay talking about it, you can let us know, or we
Yeah.
can wait till your NBA debrief, once you go to
I mean,
school.
we can go into it a little bit. Maybe I mean, I'm also on that journey right now, but whatever I can answer, or
Yeah, for sure.
we can go for
So
it.
there were some people who just asked, like, what are your target schools and when are you planning to apply to universities?
Okay, my target schools are the M7 and the T15. Some of the T15. I won't go into the specific names,
Of course.
but basically those schools, because I've always wanted to have a experience of the American education system, because I feel a lot of opportunities and a lot of more than opportunities. I think it's more about this classroom experience is very different from India, and I would be very glad to get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to target those schools now. I'm probably going to apply in round two, so I have some
Mhm.
time.
Makes sense. All right. Well, that covers most of our questions. And yeah, this was amazing, Swagata. I maybe we might add your GMAT Club forum name once this is saved on
Yeah,
YouTube in the description. And if anyone wants to PM Swagata, feel free to PM or maybe respond to her debrief, add some beautiful comments. You know, she did work hard. It's an amazing score. And congratulations once again for your
thank you,
695.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, have a good night. I don't know how to say that in Assamese. How
I
do you
don't
say that?
know. I
How
don't
do you
know.
say bye? I've never even learned how to say bye.
Bye, Ahisu, Ahiba,
Ahisu.
Ahisu.
Ahiba. Okay, ahisu. All right, take care. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.